you, Senator Polley. We'll move to question time, and I invite Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. On Monday, the Prime Minister urged Australians to, and I quote, enjoy their Easter and not cancel their holidays. Now we hear the Prime Minister will address Australians this evening to encourage Australians to help save fuel for areas that need it. Given his mixed messaging to the Australian people, can you actually tell us what does the Prime Minister want Australians to do?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Cash for that question. And I make the point that we have been making for some time, that this is a conflict and a shock to global energy markets, which is having an effect on our economy that is being experienced both in terms of supply but also price. And I have laid out here the plan that the Prime Minister announced on Monday, as well as the measures in the last weeks the government has taken to shore up supply. And as part of that, the Prime Minister has determined to address the nation tonight because this is an unprecedented shock to global energy markets that is impacting on the economy. And if I may say, Senator Cash, what that question again demonstrates is that this opposition is simply not up to the task. We are facing a conflict in the Middle East. We are facing effects on global supply, the largest shock in energy markets since the 1970s, and they are complaining that the Prime Minister wants to speak to the country about how we are dealing with it. I mean, that just says something about the opposition. And if we look at what has been reported about the leaked talking points, where they say that the message of the day is to create doubt within the public about whether the government had an adequate fuel plan, that really demonstrates why this is not a serious opposition, why they are not up to the task, why they had the result in the election, and why they continue to demonstrate an absence of what is required to lead this country.
Order. When you've quite finished, Senator Henderson. Senator Ayres. The chamber will come to order. Minister Wong, first. Sorry, she needs the question first. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, Parliament is sitting right now. The Prime Minister has the floor of the House of Representatives available to him at this very moment to tell the Australian people exactly what he wants them to do. Why is the Prime Minister waiting for Parliament to rise tonight to deliver a televised address to the nation, rather than using the floor of the House of the Representatives right now and being accountable to both the Parliament and the Australian people?
Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Order. Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher. Senator I'm not going to go senator by senator. Come to order. Minister Wong.
Last time I looked, the question time in the House of Representatives was on as we speak. I mean, and frankly, Senator Cash, if you think that we are worried about coming to Parliament to answer your questions, you've really got tickets on yourself. You've really got tickets on yourself. Because we are very clear about the leadership the Prime Minister is showing on this issue.
Minister Wong, I'm sorry. Come to order. Senator O'Sullivan, you were well and truly out of line. You were yelling so loudly, and I've already called you a couple of times. Minister Wong, please continue.
We have outlined to the Australian people over the last weeks at every step of the way what we were doing to secure supply, to release 20% of Australia's stockholding, to change the fuel standards to enable more fuel in Australia to be refined in Australia, used in Australia. We have been upfront about how we are seeking to assure supply, the international engagement that I and the Prime Minister, Minister King, Minister Bowen have had, We have outlined the legislation that we passed last night for Export Finance Australia to secure more supply and many other matters. We have been clear with Australians and we will be.
The time for answering has expired. Second supplementary, Senator Cash.
Thank you. Minister, can you identify a single consistent message this government has sent to the Australian people during this government's fuel crisis? The Prime Minister says drive. The Treasurer says work from home. The Energy Minister says supply is fine, and yet almost 900 servos are now dry across Australia. Which one of those messages should Australians believe?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
That their government will do everything we can to shield them from the shock, the impacts of this global shock. That we will do everything we can to shield them from the impacts of this crisis in global energy markets. That is our commitment to the Australian people.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Order. Before I come to you, Senator Stewart, I draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the gallery of the Singaporean Minister in charge of Energy and Science and Technology, Dr Stanley Ling. On behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. It's been over a month since the beginning of the conflict in Iran. Since then, the Albanese Labor government has been working around the clock to support Australians affected and to shield Australians from an unprecedented energy supply shock. What actions has the government taken to support and protect Australians?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you to Senator Stewart. And the longer this war goes, the worse the impacts will be. Iran's weaponisation of the Strait is causing unprecedented energy supply shocks, impacting oil and fuel prices worldwide. And Australians know this is pushing fuel prices up for consumers and businesses. It is why we are acting now to prepare and shield Australians from the worst of it. On Monday, the Prime Minister announced the National Fuel Security Plan, outlining all Australians' jurisdictions' collective response to fuel security, including immediate actions already taken and longer-term measures to strengthen our economic resilience. We are empowering Export Finance Australia to step in to support businesses purchasing critical supplies in the national interest, so we can secure additional fuel and other strategic materials, including fertiliser. We've appointed a National Fuel Supply Taskforce Coordinator and released 20% of Australia's petrol and diesel fuel reserves targeted at regional areas. We've changed fuel standards to get more fuel flowing and changed diesel standards so Australia's refineries can supply more diesel. We've tasked the ACCC to ramp up fuel price monitoring and passed new laws to double penalties for petrol companies. Our decision to halve the fuel excise on petrol and diesel for 3 months will begin to flow through to users this week. And we have engaged with international partners to keep supply flowing, including agreeing a joint statement with Singapore to strengthen energy supply resilience and to help ensure the continued flow of essential fuels. I acknowledge Minister Tan See Leng, who I was pleased to meet with today, and we welcome to the chamber. Many of Singapore's refineries that provide Australia's petrol and diesel are powered by Australian gas. Nothing better demonstrates our partnership, how much we rely upon each other and why we are committed to being reliable partners.
Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
President, and thank you, Minister, for that response. The Albanese Labor government has taken early action to support Australians through these energy shocks, and it continues to plan for every scenario to support Australians through this challenging period. What else is the government doing to support Australians?
Minister Wong.
We understand how so many Australians have no choice but to rely on petrol, and which is why we are asking Australians to use only what they need. As well as reducing the cost of fuel, our government is also reducing the heavy vehicle road user charge to zero for 3 months to help truckies continue their vital work for our nation. And we've introduced laws to make sure companies pay truckies fairly when fuel prices spike. The Treasurer and Minister for Small Business today announced the ATO will provide temporary relief for businesses unable to meet their tax obligations due to fuel supply issues where appropriate. and we will help small business access easier and fast credit by extending the Small Business Responsible Lending Obligation exemption for a further 10 years. We have acted early and we will continue to act to support Australians through this challenging period.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The crisis in the Middle East has also required engagement with our international partners to support Australians. What has the government done to help bring Australians home and to engage with our international counterparts to advocate for Australia's interests?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you, and Senator Stewart and many others, I'm sure, will have had consular Australians seeking consular advice, and I'm really pleased that over 10,000 Australians have now returned home from the Middle East on direct flights since the 4th of March. I thank regional partners, commercial airlines and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade officials for helping to bring Australians home. We are continuing to engage with our partners through this conflict to respond to the unprecedented shock in the global economy. We've joined 34 countries in a statement to condemn attacks by Iran and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And Australia co-sponsored a decision of the IMO Council condemning Iran's attack on seafarers and merchant vessels in the Strait. We will remain focused on building our resilience to withstand global shocks, to make sovereign choices, to keep Australians and our economy moving no matter what the world throws at us. And the Prime Minister will have more to say this evening
Minister
when he
Wong.
addresses the nation.
Senator Duniam.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I refer to reporting by Sky News reporter Cam Redden that government ministers have started cancelling travel to reduce fuel consumption, that members of government are considering not bringing staff to Canberra for budget week, and that ministers are considering catching the bus to Canberra because they're concerned about fuel. If ministers don't have confidence in Australia's fuel supply, which the Prime Minister and Energy Minister have said is at higher levels than before the conflict, how can Australians have confidence that we actually have enough fuel?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Wong.
Well, first, I would make the point that, as I said and the Prime Minister said, we are saying to Australians, use what fuel you need to, but no more. And that is consistent with what you have just put to me. But if I may say, Senator Duniam, what that question demonstrates is precisely the motivation that your leaked talking points demonstrate. That's what it demonstrates, because what it says, and I'll take the interjection from Senator Cash. She persistently interjects that she's standing up for the Australian people. No, you are standing up for your political interests. Your political interests. And we know that from the leaked talking points. We know that. The message of the day creates doubt about fuel supply.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Duniam.
On a point of order around relevance, President, I asked a very specific question about—
Thank you, Senator Duniam. I'm well aware of your question. I also remind you that where senators interject, the minister is perfectly within her rights to take the interjection. So, as I have been saying since 2 p.m, I have been calling for order. If you can get people to be quiet, then that would be a gold star for you. Minister Wong, please continue.
President, I was asked by this shadow minister, Senator Duniam, about the confidence in the fuel supply, and it has such a. It is exactly what he's been asked to do. It is leaked talking points that the opposition is being tasked with creating doubt
Minister
about fuel.
Minister Wong, please resume
you're doing
your seat.
exactly.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. Given the minister's reading from a document, can I ask for it to be tabled?
Senator
Because I haven't seen the talking points,
please.
and I'm on Andrew Bolt
Senator
tonight,
Canavan,
so I wouldn't mind
resume
reading
your
them.
seat. Order. Order. I'm waiting for order. Senator Watt. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator Canavan, thank you for narrowing down the suspected leakers by exclusion of the National Party. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. And I am quoting from the Daily Telegraph and what was published about your leaked talking points. So I again say, at least Senator Duniam is a loyal member of the Taylor team, and he is doing what the leaked talking points and tell us about the strategy, which is create doubt, sow fear. And the problem for the opposition is it simply demonstrates why they are unfit to seek to be the alternative government of Australia.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Duniam, first supplementary.
Thank you. No answer to that question. I ask, the National Fuel Security Plan currently states that Level 3, take targeted action, requires adopting voluntary practical measures to limit fuel use. What specific trigger in the National Fuel Security Plan has been met to justify ministers limiting their travel, and why hasn't this been disclosed to Australians? Thank
you, Senator Duniam. Minister Wong.
As the Prime Minister said, when he announced this plan after the National Cabinet, we are currently at Level 2. Level 2 includes the government taking precautionary actions to shore up fuel supply, only buy the fuel you need, make voluntary choices to use less and avoid the impact of higher fuel prices. So, Senator, we are acting in accordance with the plan that we have transparently made available to the Australian people, and the Prime Minister will have more to say in the address to the nation tonight. But what I would say again is, in a time where we see an unprecedented global shock, the worst shock that energy markets have experienced since the 1970s, to have the alternative government of the day not be, as we have been in the past when in opposition, willing to put aside partisanship for the national interest. What we see is the opposition trying to make people scared.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Duniam, second supplementary.
Mr. President, Minister, in light of the behaviour of government ministers starting to implement fuel rationing themselves, doesn't this prove the government is saying one thing publicly while preparing for a fuel crisis behind closed doors? And will the Prime Minister and his ministers be limiting the use of the taxpayer-funded SPA flights over the coming weeks in order to save fuel?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Wong. I'm just waiting for order. Minister.
The Australian people have seen over these weeks the action that the government has taken to shore up supply. The Australian people have seen the action the government has taken to enable more fuel to flow to Australia and to look to deal with distribution issues. The Australian people have seen the National Cabinet meetings, including where the National Fuel Security Plan was adopted and made public.
Minister Wong, I'm very sorry. Order. Senator McGrath, you continued your interjections. I called order 3 times. I called you by your name and you continued the running commentary. Senator O'Sullivan is also joining you in my desire to try and get you to come to order. Minister Wong.
The Australian people have seen our engagement with international partners, and the Australian people will have the benefit of the reduction in excise and the heavy vehicle road user charge. Tonight the Prime Minister will address the nation because this is an unprecedented shock on global markets. And what the Australian people also see, colleagues, is the behaviour of those opposite, who, true to form, are unable, when things are tough, to ever look to beyond their own personal interest.
Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Finance Minister representing the Treasurer, Minister Gallagher, about the upcoming budget and the effects of the war. Fuel prices went up at the pump almost immediately after the US and Israel invaded Iran. Prices went up straight away, and they've risen on average 80 cents already this month, even though that was all on the sale of fuel that was already bought and held before the war began. And yet, when it comes to passing on the relief, the Treasurer says we have to wait for the full 26 cents of fuel excise cuts to flow through to customers. Why is it that the government hasn't insisted that suppliers immediately lower prices and pass on the fuel excise cut, or better yet, passed stronger anti-price gouging laws already?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Waters for the question. And I think the government has been very clear that the effects of the conflict in the Middle East on the Australian economy, on the global economy, whilst they continue to be highly uncertain, the longer this conflict goes on, the more significant those consequences will be. And Senator Waters is right that this has been immediately felt at the household level through those increase and business level, at those increases at the petrol pump, whether it be for petrol, diesel. And, we're seeing ministers work in a whole range of industries with other industry leaders about some of the effects they're seeing in particular industries based on that. The government has responded with our National Fuel Security Plan. We've taken decisive action. We've done a range of measures which I've updated the Senate on this week. In relation to the fuel excise, the Treasurer has been very clear that the decision to halve the fuel excise and to have that come into effect from the 1st of April today, we will see prices come down. It depends on the purchase of that fuel and purchasing fuel that has the excise taken off. And so in some places it will take a little bit longer, and we're trying to be upfront with people about that. I mean, it's based on contracted supplies, and as that works through the system, you will see those prices come off. But we've also given the ACCC both themselves in the work they're doing and direction from government about the expectation we have for monitoring and ensuring that where these decisions have been taken, that the flow-on effects and the impact, the reduction in the price of petrol is realised at the bowsers by motorists when they fill their car up, and we expect that to happen as soon as possible.
Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Today's big business tax liability delay is another concession which has no requirement to be passed on to workers or consumers. So far, only businesses are getting direct relief, and people, again, have to wait and hope that those businesses pass it on. Why isn't the government doing immediate and direct cost-of-living relief, putting money in people's pockets to spend wherever they're hurting, whether it's groceries or bills or petrol or transport?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. And the government has made a number of announcements, including the partnership and working with business, and we make no apology for that. I mean, ensuring that the economy keeps moving and functioning is an important part of our responsibility, as is looking after households, and that's why the measures the government has implemented over the last few weeks has been targeted at different areas. I would remind Senator Waters that there is an inflation challenge in the economy at the same time, so how we target assistance matters, and the budget that we're putting together will reflect the economic circumstances of the time, as we always do, and as we always look at what cost of living support we can responsibly provide to people as we work through this time, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Given Trump has now told us to go and get our own oil, will the Treasury be recommending to the Prime Minister that we withdraw from AUKUS and redirect those funds towards programs that are more clearly and directly in our own economic interest?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Hi. Thanks. Okay. Hi, everybody. Last question time. I was just trying to process that and whether it was linked to the primary question, but with the indulgence of the chamber. The government has a number of responsibilities as they extend across various areas, including defence. So the answer to the question in there is no. That would not be the government's position. I acknowledge it's the Greens' position, but the Greens don't have to really, with all due respect, worry about these matters. It's up to parties of government that have to take decisions in the national interest based on a whole range of information that might not necessarily align all the time or at times with Greens' political policy. So no, the government will continue to work in the national interest and make sure that the decisions we take particularly in the budget, are the right ones for the country that support jobs and support families and support business through these difficult and challenging times.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Australians are facing growing uncertainty in the global economy, particularly the impact of conflict in the Middle East on fuel prices, with the Treasurer noting the conflict and its consequences will be a defining influence on the upcoming budget. Can the Minister update the Senate on how these global economic impacts, especially on fuel, are shaping the broader economic outlook ahead of the May budget?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator O'Neill for the question, particularly on this really important question, I think, that's concerning so many Australians. This conflict is a defining influence on global growth and inflation this year, and that's why it will be a defining influence on our budget in May. As the Treasurer has said, this budget will be focused on resilience and reform. The war in the Middle East is the most pressing problem confronting the global economy, but it reinforces the three core challenges shaping this budget. Before the war, inflation was too high, productivity growth had been too weak for 2 decades, and while Australian and the Australian economy had held up remarkably well, the global environment was already highly volatile. So the government is responding to all of these challenges now, but we will also do that in the upcoming budget. We've got, as I've said in previous answers, it's adding to the inflation challenge, which we acknowledge was too high before the conflict. It's intensifying uncertainty when it's already elevated and straining our productive capacity when it's already close to limit. As the Treasurer has said, we're approaching these challenges from a position of relative strength. Unemployment remains historically low. We've created 1.2 million jobs, and we have seen consistent wages growth above 3% for many quarters now. That is good news, but there is more work to do. The savings that we've found in the budget, the work that we are doing around continuing to look at every dollar we spend to make sure it's going to where it needs, to look at how we return revenue, to lower debt, lower those deficits and find savings over time will be a continued focus for us over the next month.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Neill, first supplementary.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. Today, the Treasurer announced the Albanese Labor government is working with business and finance sectors to help ease the pressure on Australian families and small businesses. Can the Minister outline today's announcement and how it provides both support and flexibility for Australians at this difficult time?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator O'Neill for that question. Today we have announced new measures to give Australian families and businesses more flexibility during this time. It's about making systems more flexible, supply chains more responsive and business more supported. The ATO will provide temporary relief for businesses unable to meet their tax obligations due to fuel supply issues where appropriate. This will include more generous payment plans, remission in interest and penalties, and support in varying PAYG instalments where there has been a downturn in taxable income. In relation to small business, we'll help small business access easier and faster credit by extending the Small Business Responsible Lending Obligation exemption for a further 10 years. This will ensure small businesses aren't slugged with additional regulatory burdens and delays when accessing loans. And we welcome the commitments from the bank. Indeed, former Senator Birmingham in the Blue Room today, saying how they are working across their members and to ensure customers, suppliers and employees
the time
are
for
supported.
Has expired. Senator O'Neill, second supplementary.
Thank you very much for that response to Australian families and small businesses. The Australian Labor government has already taken steps to ease some of the pressure Australians are feeling. Can the Minister detail what actions the government has already implemented to assist households and businesses, and how these actions work alongside today's announcement?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator O'Neill, and she's right to ask that question about how what we've announced today works alongside those other measures. And it's essentially ensuring that the government is responding wherever we can to support industry, to support households, to support businesses, and work with stakeholders about how we coordinate our response to this fuel crisis. In addition to all of that was announced today, there are all the measures that we have taken, including increased penalties to make sure, for the ACCC, to make sure that companies are doing the right thing, releasing our 20% of our fuel reserves targeted to ease pressure in regional markets, temporarily adjusting the petrol and diesel standards to increase available supply and to ensure fuel keeps moving through the system, the continued engagement with international partners and suppliers to support continued shipments and strengthen supply chain resilience, and, of course, the legislation that passed the parliament yesterday
thank you, Minister.
to strengthen
the time
our response.
for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Minister McAllister. Minister, Number 34 is an Aboriginal rural health service in Tasmania's northwest. It provides services like mums and bubs groups, youth programs and emotional wellbeing support, mental health counselling and family support work. It's there for people who don't have access to similar services for a range of reasons. Recently I met with one of the driving forces behind the organisation, and she told me that Number 34 has lost its federal primary health funding. She doesn't know why. She doesn't know where it went. What she does know is that several full-time jobs have already been lost, including identified Aboriginal roles. Minister, can you tell me what happened to the Number 34 funding?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question and also for advising my office of her interest in this issue to allow me to prepare an answer. The government acknowledges the significant contribution that Number 34 has made in improving the wellbeing of First Nations people in northwestern Tasmania, and we recognise how important it is that there are culturally safe services for First Nations people in the region. Number 34 is currently funded under the Indigenous Australians Health Program. This program has become the default funding source for many First Nations health initiatives, including those delivered by non-Indigenous organisations. We are actively working with the Aboriginal community-controlled sector to evaluate existing funding for that program and rebalance it in line with the priorities identified by that sector. They have told us that their biggest priority for funding is community-controlled, comprehensive primary healthcare services, and through this prioritised investment, we can ensure funding will have the greatest impact for First Nations people. The government is committed to genuine partnership with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled health sector. We've committed to this under the National Agreement on Closing the Gap, and Priority Reforms 1 and 2 speak directly to shared decision-making and building the community-controlled sector. That is exactly what we're doing. We recognise the challenges that you have raised today, and there is no question that local programs delivering local solutions are important. The Minister for Health and Ageing has been made aware of this case and is considering options for funding.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Beyond the health services they do provide, Number 34 is a safe place to go, to have a hot shower, a cup of tea, to be with community and to feel supported. It's a place where people can both receive and give support to First Nations people in need. Minister, do you agree that supporting First Nations people in rural areas is important?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Senator Tyrrell, the short answer is yes. Our government is committed to improving outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in all areas of Australia. We do know that holistic wraparound services provided by community-controlled organisations are critical to achieving positive outcomes in First Nations communities. It's why we continue to direct investment to and work in partnership with the community-controlled sector. As an example, in the Closing the Gap speech earlier this year, the Prime Minister announced $144 million to upgrade community-controlled services. So from maternal health to mental health in remote Australia and in the cities, we are determined to grow community-controlled solutions. We're investing in co-design, we are listening to communities, and we are determined to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in all areas in our country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
President, right now the workers and volunteers at number 34 are deeply concerned. They're surviving on minimal funding and won't be able to keep providing the same level of care. And as you might be aware, in Tasmania we do have a divide between TAC and a couple of the other organisations not recognising other Indigenous people. Minister, will the government commit to reinstating funding so number 34 can continue to provide these essential services to First Nations people in the northwest area?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Our government is committed to ensuring there are culturally safe services available across the country, including for First Nations people in northwest Tasmania. We recognise the important role number 34 plays in the community, and we note their request for continued Commonwealth funding. Can I thank Senator Tyrrell for her continual advocacy for better health outcomes across Tasmania. The Minister for Health and Ageing has been made aware of this case, as I indicated in my answer to your primary question, and he is considering options for funding.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cadell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Environment and Water, Senator Watt. Minister, the government continues to spend billions on water buybacks which rip the economic rug out from underneath communities in the nation's food bowl. These buybacks are occurring despite the Commonwealth having more of the water than it knows what to do with. The Commonwealth environmental water holder, the CHU, is the largest holder of water in the country by far, and it is rarely, if ever, used all the water it's allocated in a given year. This week, the Liberal and National parties introduced a bill to conduct a commission of inquiry into the environmental water use in the basin. You dismissed this, saying the call for the commission of inquiry would be pulling apart the plan. Minister, why won't the government support a proper inquiry that own farmers are calling for into how taxpayer money and environmental water is being used?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Cadell. Well, what do you know? The final sitting week of six-week block, the final sitting day before the Farrer by-election, and the National Party discovered the Murray-Darling Basin. After months of silence about this issue, total silence about this issue, the Farrer by-election is called. The Nats are on track to come fourth, admitted by their former leader, Mr Littleproud. We've had One Nation call for a Royal Commission into water.
Order.
We've had Michelle Millthorpe, the independent candidate, call for a Royal Commission into water. And so finally, the National Party wake from their slumber and have this original idea, let's have a Royal Commission into water. That is how slow these people are. And this is why Australians are walking away from the National Party in droves, because they have stopped being thought leaders when it comes to regional Australia, and they have started becoming thought followers. They have become a party whose sole existence is to distribute preferences either to the Liberal Party or to a Teal Independent or to One Nation Party.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Order. Senator McKenzie.
On direct relevance, point of order, the minister has gone nowhere near why the government won't support an inquiry.
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. I will remind the minister of the question.
Not be supporting the National Party's request for a Royal Commission following One Nation's request for a Royal Commission, following the Teal Independents' request for a Royal Commission.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator McKenzie.
Point of order, and the minister did do this in his speech this morning. We are not calling for a Royal Commission.
Senator McKenzie, that is not a point of order. Seriously. Minister Watt.
Now, Senator Cadell, on behalf of the National Party, has squealed and objected to water buybacks. I can tell you someone in this parliament who likes water buybacks, and his name is Angus Taylor, the leader of the opposition. Because who can remember Mr Taylor's involvement in that dodgy $80 million deal signed off by Barnaby Joyce? He used to be a member of the National Party as well. So Barnaby Joyce, as the then Minister for Water, signed off an $80 million deal to buy water from a company linked to Angus Taylor and headquartered in the Cayman Islands. So that's how much the Liberal and National Party hate water buybacks, is that they want to get in on them, especially when there's an $80 million deal at stake. You have no credibility on water, and that is why Australians are walking away from you.
Minister Watt. Just before I come to you, Senator Cadell, Minister Watt, I do remind you to refer to others in the other place by their correct titles. Senator Cadell, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, when I was at the Murray-Darling Authority meeting last year, when for 2 days you sent a 10-minute video, so thank you for that. Recently, the Senator Canavan and the Minister for Water, Michael McCormack, and Nationals candidate Brad Robertson visited Narendra, where they were told the shocking tap of their tap water. The difference between the water we can get in Canberra from the tap and the water we get in Narrandera is visible to anyone who looks on my desk. Minister, the people in Narrandera have applied for funding from the National Water Grid so they can have clean water drinking again. When will your government fund a water treatment plant for the people of Narrandera?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Watt.
Thank you again for the supplementary to the Dorothy Dixer, because yet again the National Party are coming late to the party. Now, after 10 years of coalition government, where the coalition spent not a single dollar on the water supply in Narrandera, which happens to be in the electorate of Farrer, all of a sudden you're interested. And what you haven't caught up on is that after you did nothing for these people for 10 years, we have funded a business case into a water purification plant in Narrandera, which you never did. 10 years, you did nothing at all. We are actually acting, just like we are acting on the voluntary water buybacks that are needed to sustain the Murray-Darling Basin. Well, it's good that Senator Canavan has walked away from his previous position where he said that farmers are no longer the sole constituency of the National Party. Now he loves farmers, and it's got nothing to do with the by-election whatsoever. Everyone in regional Australia has walked away from you. They are walking to other parties. They are walking to independence as one nation. It is over for the National Party.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Cadell, second supplementary.
Minister, we have spent $13 billion on a basin plan, but we cannot even deliver clean drinking water to the basin communities, or the farmers constantly feel under attack. Isn't it time to stop the buybacks and instead invest in providing basin communities with potable and reliable water supply?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Watt.
Well, again, 10 years of coalition government where they let the people of Narrandera go through drinking water like what you've got on your table, not a cent spent on fixing the problem. We now have a government that's investing in fixing the problem, and you're complaining after turning your back on these people for 10 years. This is why the National Party is on track to come fourth at best in the Farrer by-election, because people know you have no solutions for them. No solutions. How much did they get in South Australia? 0.5%? That's why you got 0.7% of the vote in the South Australian election, because people know you have nothing to offer.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan, I'm sure you can see Senator Henderson on her feet, and I'm waiting for silence. Senator Henderson.
President, a point of order. Could you ask the minister? He's repeatedly mentioned you in his answers. Could you ask him to
Senator
refer
Henderson,
make his comments through the chair,
Resume your seat. Senator Watt, you do need to direct your questions to the chair, and please continue.
Thank you, President. Well, I thought Senator Henderson would be a little bit busy on Victorian Upper House pre-selections, but obviously she's got time to interpret standing orders as well. She's got such a good record that way. Yeah, they all agree. They all agree. They all agree. They all agree. This government is finally acting on restoring the environmental health of the Murray-Darling Basin, which is bringing back water birds, bringing back the health of that water system and sustaining agriculture long into the future.
Order. Order. Order, Senator Canavan. Order. I did indicate to Senator Cadell this morning that I thought he had a prop on his desk. He assured me it wasn't, and to his credit, he hasn't used it as a prop. However, Senator Canavan, you have. You know it's disorderly, and please cease from doing that. Senator Orman-Payne.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Hundreds of thousands of people on income support are being forced to spend their limited incomes travelling to appointments, work for the dole sites and other compulsory activities under a welfare compliance regime that multiple reports have found is both counterproductive and legally dubious. During previous crises, governments have sensibly paused so-called mutual obligations to lift the burden on people most at risk. Given fuel prices are skyrocketing and welfare recipients are, once again, bearing the brunt of economic upheaval, will the government suspend mutual obligations and give relief to people forced to live on below the poverty line payments?
Thank you, Senator Orman-Payne, and I should have indicated to the chamber Senator Payman has passed that question on to Senator Orman-Payne. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Orman-Payne. I think for some time now we've understood that there is a difference of position between the government and the Labor Party and the Greens Party when it comes to mutual obligations. It is the policy of our government that we support. We stand by the concept of mutual obligations, which involves the community generally, through the government, providing training and work opportunities to those who are unemployed. But there is an expectation from the community that unemployed people seek to find work as well. That's essentially what it comes down to. I know the Greens don't support that position. They never have supported that position, but that is a position that we think is supported by the vast majority of the Australian population. Now, of course, this government has increased support payments, whether it be to unemployed people, as was very much necessary. We've increased support payments to single mothers. We've increased support payments to a wide variety of Australians who are doing it tough. Remote workers as well, Senator McCarthy reminds me, in addition to the range of other cost of living relief that we have provided to Australians. So we will continue to stand by Australians who are looking for work, provide them with the support that they require. You might think that's funny, but that's something that we're prepared to do.
Senator McKim, I've asked you to come to order. Senator Orman-Payne, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. There's clear and long-standing evidence that private job providers frequently exercise their power over welfare recipients in ways that are harmful, including payment suspensions. Advocates are telling me now that despite the current crisis, many job providers are still refusing phone appointments, forcing welfare recipients to travel. How bad does the fuel crisis need to get before the government considers suspending compulsory obligations?
Thank you, Senator Orman-Payne. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Look, I am aware, especially from my time as the Minister for Employment, that there have been occasions where service providers have not done the right thing by those who are looking for work. And as a government, we've taken action against those providers who have done so. What we're also doing, led by Minister Rishworth, is a very large-scale reform of the employment services system in Australia in recognition—
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Minister Wong.
President, disorderly conduct. Senator McKim continues to interject. The minister is treating this question with a great deal of respect. He is seeking to answer it. Senator McKim has not let up in his interjections. I'd ask that you call him to order.
Senator McKim, I will call you to order again, and I expect you to be silent for the next 36 seconds. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. What I was saying is that Minister Rishworth is leading what will end up being a large-scale reform of our employment services system in Australia in recognition that the current system is certainly not working for job seekers and it's not working for employers or service providers either. So over time, I'm sure Minister Rishworth will have more to say about that matter, but in the meantime, we will continue taking action against those service providers who do the wrong thing by job seekers.
Senator Orman-Payne, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. During the pandemic, the government not only suspended mutual obligations, it also doubled the rate of job seeker, lifting hundreds of thousands out of poverty and saving lives. Given that the war labour supports has triggered a global fuel crisis, will you take responsibility to protect those most at risk from this crisis by raising the rate of all Centrelink payments above the poverty line?
Thank you, Senator Orman-Payne. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Orman-Payne. I don't think it's quite right to draw the connection between the experience people were having working or not able to get to work or not able to work during the COVID period and the situation that we're going on through at the moment. There's no doubt that people are doing it tough as a result of the increase to fuel prices. That's why the government in the last couple of days announced a halving of the petrol excise in recognition that people are doing it tough and need support. And that's, of course, in addition to the range of other cost of living support that this government has provided. As I mentioned in my last answer, we've also, as a government, increased the job seeker payment. We've increased payments to single mothers, and any further decisions will always be made in the context of our budget.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Brown.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture.
Senator Brown, I'm sorry. Resume your seat. Senator McKim, come to order or leave the chamber. Senator Brown, please continue.
Thank you. To the Minister for representing the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator McCarthy. We know that the conflict in the Middle East is causing serious challenges for families, farmers and businesses in Australia and around the world. Our farmers, fishers and producers work hard every day to feed millions of Australians and our international neighbours, and they are feeling the pressure of these global disruptions on their input costs and their supply chains. Can the Minister outline what the Albanese Labor government is doing to support our farmers and regional communities through this difficult period and to keep Australian agricultural supply chains moving?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Brown for the question. The Albanese Labor government will always back our farmers, fishers and producers. They underpin our food security, our economy and our regional communities. Over recent weeks, they've faced real challenges from the conflict in the Middle East, President, which is having impacts globally, and that's why our government has been working day and night to help our farmers manage these impacts and keep Australia moving. We know our farmers are under real pressure on input costs, particularly fuel and fertiliser, and that's why the Albanese Labor government is acting to halve the fuel excise for 3 months, lowering costs at the bowser for farmers filling up machinery. We've amended fuel and diesel standards and released 20% of our strategic fuel stockpile, and yesterday our government deferred full cost recovery for export services for 1 year until the 1st of July 2027. Giving farmers and exporters more certainty and allowing our producers to continue to compete on the world stage. The NFF President, Hamish McIntyre, called these, and I quote, practical decisions that will deliver more certainty for farmers and exporters.
The NFF doesn't talk about you like that.
The Australian Livestock Exporters Council called it a common-sense outcome. And the Australian Meat Industry Council said our government has listened, unlike those opposite, and responded to industry concerns. These changes will keep our farmers farming and will mean regional communities are not left behind, President, because that is what's in the national interest. And on this side of the chamber, we will always stand up for our farmers, producers, exporters and our regional communities.
Thank you, Senator McCarthy. Senator Brown, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister, for that response. And as you've mentioned, our farmers are facing increasing pressure from input costs. Fertiliser is one of the most critical inputs for food production, and we know that supply from the Middle East has been disrupted. Can the Minister update the Senate on what the Albanese Labor government is doing to secure fertiliser supplies for Australian farmers?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Fertiliser is critical, and our government is acting on multiple fronts to secure supply. The legislation that passed Parliament this week gives Export Finance Australia new powers to underwrite fuel and fertiliser purchases from international markets. This means the government can give suppliers the confidence to get product where it's needed most and keep fertiliser flowing to Australian farmers and producers. At the same time, Minister Collins and Ayres have established a fertiliser working group bringing the public service together with representatives from Fertiliser Australia, the National Farmers Federation and right across industry. This working group will meet for the first time tomorrow to monitor supply and demand and work through options to increase supply. This may include engaging alternative suppliers in Southeast Asia and supporting domestic production. We're using every lever we have to keep our farmers farming.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Brown, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Australians rightly expect their government to act when global events put pressure on our economy. Can the Minister outline what further measures the Albanese Labor government has taken to protect Australian families, farmers and businesses?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Yes, every part of our government's response to this unprecedented shock is designed to keep our farmers farming. We're also reducing the heavy vehicle road user charge to zero for 3 months. We're deferring the next scheduled increase by 6 months. And this reduction will help keep farmers' freight moving in our regions. All of these efforts are what a considered plan looks like, practical action that makes a real difference on the ground. Those opposite are really good at attacking. They're good at playing politics. They're good at trying to scare Australians. But where are their solutions, President? As we deal with this unprecedented shock to global energy markets, those opposite can keep trying to scare Australian farming families, and the Albanese Labor government is just getting on with the job.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, how many petrol stations in Australia have dropped their petrol price by 26 cents per litre today?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Well, as you would know, Senator, the fuel excise reduction commenced today, and you will understand that will flow through to users in the weeks and in the days to come, in the following week. Well, no, I misspoke. I said in the days to come. There's obviously there already exists fuel under previously existing contracts, but I hope that you will join with so much of Australia in welcoming the reduction in excise and the reduction in the heavy vehicle road user charge.
Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Minister, what was the average price of unleaded petrol across Australia yesterday, and what is the average price of unleaded petrol across Australia today?
Minister Wong.
Well, I fueled my car up on the weekend, my personal car, and I think it was about $2.60-something at the time. I hope we see lower prices in the days to come.
Minister Wong has concluded her answer. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Right, direct relevance, and I was on my feet.
The minister's concluded her
She didn't answer the question, though. That
Senator,
was direct relevance of yesterday and today, not the weekend.
Senator Hume, I have no... Senator Hume, I'm not quite sure what you're
saying. I
cannot rewind here. The minister had concluded her answer. Please ask your second supplementary.
That was the answer. I feel my car on the weekend.
Wow.
Well, we'll just wait for silence. Senator McGrath, I'm sure you can see that Senator Hume is on her feet. Order. Order.
Even today, there are 845 service stations around the country that have run dry of at least one type of fuel.
Order.
Don't lie.
Order.
Seriously. Who said that?
You are ridiculous. Order.
I feel such confidence.
Order across the chamber. Yeah, far out, Senator McKenzie. I've been calling for order because I would like Senator Hume to be able to ask her question in silence. And that is right across the chamber, and particularly at you. Senator Hume, please continue.
Minister, given today there are 845 service stations running dry of at least one type of fuel, at how many service stations across the country will Australians actually be able to find fuel that has dropped 26 cents per litre over Easter?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator, as I said, the excise started on 1st of April. That will flow through to consumers over the coming days. I'm pleased to report, and this is a South Australian answer, that the Adelaide Advertiser reported fuel prices down 30 cents per litre, unleaded dropping to $2.29 on Wednesday morning in much of the state's metro area and regional centres, while diesel had also dropped below the $3 mark, following the federal government's announcement on Monday to cut the fuel excise by half, reducing the cost of fuel and saving drivers around $16 when filling up a 60-litre tank. And I hope, Senator, that you will welcome that. But I suspect you'll be back with the talking points which is you really don't want to talk about these talking points.
Minister
Did you give them away?
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Hume.
On direct relevance, President, the talking points that Minister Wong refers to, I'd like them to be tabled because they're different to mine.
Senator Hume.
My talking points
Senator Hume, resume
say that
your
the
seat. Senator Hume. Senator Hume, resume your seat. Order. Senator Colbeck. Senator Hume, when I ask you to resume your seat, you resume your seat. You do not continue to ignore me trying to make some clever point. You are being disrespectful. Minister, please continue.
Well, when it comes to the leaked talking points, methinks the deputy doth protest too much.
Order. Senator Marielle-Smith.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Getting wages moving again has been a key pillar of our government's agenda to support Australians dealing with cost of living pressures. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering better outcomes for low-paid workers?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Smith. I've got some very good news, Senator Smith, to round out this sitting fortnight. The Albanese Labor government is absolutely committed to getting wages moving again, especially for low-paid workers. It is this Labor government that has advocated each and every year for a wage rise for workers on minimum award wages. And on Thursday last week, we made our submission to the Fair Work Commission calling for an economically sustainable real wage increase for our lowest-paid workers on minimum award wages. That will help almost 2.7 million workers across the country. Over the course of our time in office, the minimum wage has increased by over $9,000 per year, essential cost of living support for the nation's lowest-paid workers. As a result of this government's workplace reforms, we've made sure that gender equality is at the heart of the workplace laws, which has led to the Commission delivering for workers who have been undervalued for too long. We have funded wage increases for aged carers and early educators to recognise the important work they do, and of course we've legislated to protect penalty and overtime rates for workers on award rates because they deserve to be properly paid for working unsociable hours. And this Labor government is also restoring balance to the Fair Work Commission so both workers and employers get a fair hearing before the Commission. Now, yesterday, the Independent Fair Work Commission made a historic decision by ruling that young adult workers should earn adult wages. The government welcomes the decision to abolish junior rates for 18 to 20-year-old workers in retail, fast food and pharmacy. This decision, which is up there with the introduction of equal pay for women in the 1970s, means that tens of thousands of young adult workers will earn more at this important time in their lives. In its decision, the Commission considered the need for time for employers and businesses to adjust and recommended pay rises be phased in over 4 years. I congratulate the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association for taking on this case and for securing this really important win for young workers.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Smith, first supplementary.
You're right, Minister. Yesterday's decision by the Fair Work Commission is an absolutely fantastic outcome for young workers in retail, fast food and pharmacy sectors, among many others. As cost of living pressures begin to rise as the conflict in the Middle East continues, how else is the Albanese Labor government supporting Australian workers to earn more and keep more of what they earn?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Watt.
Thanks very much, Senator Smith. Well, whether it's a tax cut for every Australian worker, opposed by the opposition, advocating for higher wages, opposed by the opposition, or protecting important conditions that put more money in people's pockets, like penalty rates and overtime, opposed by the opposition, the Albanese government is consistently on the side of working Australians. We're absolutely dedicated to ensuring that Australians earn more and keep more of what they earn. The Coalition, on the other hand, have opposed every single measure we've introduced that would benefit the millions of workers facing cost of living pressures right now. The Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party and Shadow Industrial Relations spokesperson Senator Hume went as far as claiming that real wage increases, quote, would be the worst thing for Australians. Maybe the Australians in Toorak, but maybe not other Australians. And she also claimed that adding more rights for workers is unreasonable. What an unreasonable thing to do, to add more rights to workers. Senator Hume also wanted workers to have to choose between their wages going up and their super. Labor supports working Australia.
Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The campaign to get this outcome for young workers has been hard fought for many decades. Can the minister outline what support this decision to pay adult wages for adult jobs has received?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Smith. Well, yesterday's Fair Work decision means that tens of thousands of young workers will earn more at this important time in their lives. These are among our lowest paid workers and they should be fairly compensated for the work they perform. As Sierra Bell, who works 3 casual jobs, including one at Kmart while studying at university, she says your bills aren't discounted, even though you're paid a discounted rate as an adult. Well, now Sierra and all those other young workers will be paid what they deserve. Now, in breaking news, my office have told me that the Coalition and One Nation have decided to support this pay rise for young workers. What an extraordinary about-face from the Coalition. I mean, putting aside their ideological opposition for once to supporting millions of workers and back in the union. Oh, hang on. Oh, I've just checked the date of this document. It's April the 1st. It's April the 1st. April Fools. The Liberals, Nationals and One Nation will never support a pay rise because you want working people to be worse off.
Minister Wong.
I ask that further questions be placed on notice, and if I may